As the European Union faces Brexit, a migrant crisis and rising nationalism, we speak to two foreign ministers about their country's priorities. Hello, I'm Anand Naidoo at the United Nations, and this is a special edition of The Heat. Hungary has been at the forefront of the migrant crisis as it built a high-tech fence to keep migrants out, and its government officials loudly criticize illegal migration. But it still has global goals as the foreign minister holds bilateral meetings and signs deals with countries around the world. Hungary's relationship with China is among its closest, with bilateral trade between the two reaching record numbers. Earlier, I sat down with the foreign minister of Hungary, Peter Szijjarto, to discuss his country's ties with China, the EU, and his controversial views on immigration. Minister, thank you very much for joining us. You've just held a meeting with the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. What do you see as the greatest areas of cooperation between Hungary and China?
You know, we respect the Chinese initiative called One Belt, One Road. And we think that this is one of the most important initiatives of international policies and politics in the recent years. As we understand, there's a totally new world order is being under creation, and we have to understand that the dogmatic approach is over, which said that the capital only flows from west to east looking for cheap labor. Now it's a totally different situation, that it works both ways. I mean, the Chinese capital and the capital from the Far East is flowing to the West as well, performing very high standards of technologies, and they you know, offer the latest state-of-art technologies and gaining market shares in Europe and in the northern part of Americas. So for us, the One Belt, One Road initiative is a huge opportunity to attract successful and highly developed Chinese capital to Hungary, because the Hungarian economy is in a situation of a changing dimension, from the Made in Hungary situation to the Explore and Invent in Hungary. So we need these new technologies, and the Chinese investors can offer that for sure.
And you talked about the One Belt, One Road initiative. Hungary was one of the first countries to sign on to that initiative. How do you grow that partnership with China?
We have a flagship project which is co-sponsored or co-financed by the Chinese government, which is the modernization of the railway line between the Serbian capital Belgrade and the Hungarian capital Budapest, which is going to be an important link when it comes to the maritime Silk Road, which arrives to Greece, to Piraeus, and from the port of Piraeus the goods should be delivered to the western part of Europe through Hungary, but a precondition of that is to have a developed transit delivery infrastructure, and this new railway line will give this opportunity, and Chinese companies are bidding for the construction, and we have been in negotiations with the Chinese Exim Bank to finance this investment.
Now, looking at your bilateral relationship with China, your trade relationship with China, it's growing at the moment. Trade between the two countries worth $6.5 billion. How do you grow that?
Well, actually, last year we have broken the record of trade with China. We have broken the record of Hungarian export, which has passed the $2 billion mark, first time ever. And there's a big opportunity for forward progress, which is regarding the food industry products, since Hungarian constitution says that the Hungarian agriculture and food industry must be free of GMO, which ensures that the Hungarian food is not only delicious but healthy in the meantime. And we understand, as the middle class is growing in China, the demand regarding food industry products is getting more and more sophisticated. So the quality which is represented by the Hungarian food industry products give us a good chance to gain further market shares in China.
Now, early in his first term, your Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, he introduced the Eastern Opening Plan, stronger ties with China being a cornerstone of that plan. It's been about 8 years since. How would you rate progress?
Well, actually, when we came into office, we understood that there would be turbulent weather coming up in global economy and global trade, and we understood that if you stand only on one foot of yours, then wind might blow you, so you should stand on 2 feet of yours. So that's why we have decided in favor of launching a policy which we call Eastern Opening, and in the framework of which we pay much more attention to enhance the cooperation with the highly developed and the rapidly emerging Eastern economies, among them China. It has been steadily growing, and we make further achievements or further efforts to attract Chinese companies to come to Hungary. Very recently, the biggest electric bus producer, BYD, of China decided in favor of establishing their first factory in Europe, in Hungary. So with the low taxes we have, and with the wide variety of cash incentive we can offer for investments, I think we offer very attractive environment for the Chinese companies.
So you have these bilateral relationships. You're also a member of the European Union. How do you reconcile those two?
You know, we always base our foreign policy on mutual respect. So we never interfere into domestic issues of other countries, and of course we expect others not to interfere in our domestic issues either. Our position is that all countries have their own rights to make their decisions about their internal issues, and we rather leave it to the Chinese people to decide about their internal issues than commenting that. So it's well above our payroll to interfere into domestic issues of other countries. We never do that.
Well, let me ask you about one issue that is perhaps preoccupying the European Union right now, and that is Brexit. Yeah. You're a member of the EU, you have voting power in the EU. How closely is Hungary watching this?
Look, it has a huge risk on the entire European Union, because UK is the second largest economy in Europe and the 5th largest in the world, a member of the Security Council, being a nuclear power. So losing UK is a huge loss for the European Union, and a huge loss for countries like Hungary, which has always represented a more sovereignist approach when it comes to the debates about the future of the European Union. So and the UK has represented a similar kind of position. That's why we regret a lot the decision of the British people. In the meantime, we respect that decision, because it is only the British population who is entitled to make a decision about the future of UK. We really would like to see a deal as a conclusion of the negotiations. We think that not having a deal will put an enormous risk on the European Union, because if there's no deal, it means that the WTO rules will apply when it comes to the trade between the remaining part of the European Union and the UK, which means a lot of obstacles, a lot of tariffs, a lot of non-tariff barriers, which will cause a lot of harms to European economies, especially to those like Hungary, which have a very close connection and close cooperation with the UK. We don't like this categorization of hard or soft Brexit. What we want is a fair deal, a fair Brexit agreement, which can be satisfactory and beneficial on a mutual basis for both entities.
One other issue for the European Union, and that is migrants and refugees. We've seen a lot about that over the past few years. You've come under a lot of criticism for your views on migrants and refugees. What's your response on that?
You know, I think illegal migration is the most serious challenge European Union ever had to face. Illegal migration puts enormous security threat to the European Union, as these uncontrolled influx of millions of people to Europe gave the opportunity for terrorist organizations to send their terrorists and activists to Europe. You see that during the last 3.5 years, 33 major terrorist attacks were committed in the territory of European Union by persons with a migratory background, which has never been the case before. So it's a huge security risk which is now being put on the continent. European Union has been performing a terrible policy on migration, as the European Union basically invited illegal migrants to come to Europe, which basically will end up in changing the composition of the population of the European Union, for which there is no democratic legitimization on behalf of the people of the European Union.
You recently did 2 interviews where you highlighted the need to maintain what you call Europe's Christian heritage. How do you reconcile that desire to maintain Christianity when you have a Europe which is rapidly diversifying?
You know, Europe is based on Christian values and Christian culture, and we think that being further and further from this heritage caused a lot of harm to the European Union. So we have to understand that there are countries which would like to stick to their traditions, to their history, to their culture, to their religion, like Hungary. And when the European Union was founded, it was founded based on the Christian democratic values. And I think that if European Union gets rid of these values, then European Union will be weaker, even weaker than currently.
I don't think it was based on any religious values, was it?
No, but it was based on a Christian democratic heritage and a Christian democratic approach. So when I speak about this, I mean culture, I mean heritage, I mean approach.
Europe is predominantly Christian in the number of people who practice the religion. So you are saying that there should be no tolerance for any other religion?
I don't say that, because being a Christian means that you cannot be anti something. So being Christian means that you are very tolerant. So I have nothing against other religions. Of course, what I say is that we should not give up the fact that Europe has been a Christian continent, and I'm very sad about the recent developments in the western part of Europe, where, for example, Christian symbols must be taken away from public areas, which is totally unacceptable and is unimaginable for me. What leads to this kind of decision? But
there have also been decisions taken where other religions have had to remove their symbols as well.
You know, in this regard, I think that the democratic rights must be extended to everyone. So there must be a freedom to practice your own religion. But we must not forget about the fact that we are a Christian continent, and I don't really understand those who question that, because this is history, this is a fact.
The United Nations recently sanctioned Hungary on human rights on that issue.
Yeah, but you know, it's ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, it's those people who made these reports, I think, never been to Hungary, or they are very biased, they are very unbalanced. You know, it's crazy. I mean, if you come to Hungary, you see it's a democratic country. There are 60,000 NGOs operating, very vibrant civic society. Although there are some NGOs, like a dozen, who usually complain about the situation, because these are foreign-funded NGOs which became political actors, which had the intention to throw out the government, but then they lost very badly on the elections, and they are frustrated with that. They hate the fact that Hungarian people voted in favor of the current government. 49.6% of the votes we gained after 8 years in office, the most votes we ever received. You know, we occupy 2/3 of the seats in the parliament based on a democratic election. So all the NGOs should understand that this is the will of the Hungarian people.
The political landscape of Europe is changing. We've seen the emergence of what are termed nationalist or populist parties right now. We've seen that in Italy, recently in Sweden. There's also a growing party in the Netherlands. We've seen that in France to a certain extent, in Hungary as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I don't like this dogmatic type of debates, because my question is, what does it mean that you are patriotic? What does it mean that you are populist? Because in my understanding, the basis of politics is that a political party listens to the people and then acts accordingly. So if you say populistic and you mean that we represent the people, then you are right, we represent the people. So in Hungary, you know, we had an overwhelming support in the last 3 elections, and I really don't like those approaches which try to portray Hungarian people as not being smart enough to make decisions about their own future. And you have to respect decisions of the nations. You have to respect the decision of the Italians, that they thought that now they want a party which speaks directly, straightforward, honest. In Hungary, our party, the governing party, speaks directly to the point, speaks honestly. We act according to what we say, and I think this is very important now in Europe, that the big party families should understand that that acting as you know, kings in an ivory tower doesn't work anymore. So you have to listen to the people, you have to listen to their position, you have to understand what are the challenges of them, you have to understand what they want, what route they would like to follow for the future, and you have to act accordingly.
Minister, thank you very much for joining us.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
We're going to take a break right now. Up next, the Foreign Minister of Latvia joins the heat. Stay with us for this special edition of the show from the United Nations in New York.